Hello and welcome to the Quick News Daily Podcast, where I give you the facts first, no clickbait stories, just real news that matters to real people. Today is Monday, September 21st, and thank you for joining me. Of course, as I'm sure you can guess, we're going to be talking a lot about the news that broke late Friday night, the passing of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. We'll talk about Justice Ginsburg, the fallout, and what comes next, and really that'll take up most of the show. Then, I'll play some of Trump's craziest moments from this weekend, talk about the finalized TikTok deal, and we'll see what else we can get to. But we'll start the show with the news that certainly surprised me, and I think surprised a lot of people. Ruth Bader Ginsburg passing away on Friday at the age of 87 from complications with pancreatic cancer. Yeah. That was a shocker, and one of those moments that really takes the wind out of your sails. You've heard me mention her cancer and trips to the hospital before, but the stories always ended with saying she'd make a full recovery. Maybe that was just her doctors being overly positive or her spokespeople spinning the news, but I really believed it, so that's why it caught me off guard. Taking a step back and looking at her time on the court, she was nominated by Bill Clinton after being first recommended by former Republican Senator Orrin Hatch, of all people. I'm guessing this was because she was seen as a moderate at the time. She was only the second woman ever on the court, and its first Jewish member since 1969. Throughout her entire time on the court, she was known as a champion for women's rights, LGBT rights, and helping make the court more inclusive for those of the Jewish faith. That's the part that's been lost so far, at least for now. And that's why you saw so many people at that spontaneous vigil outside the Supreme Court building on Friday. As a man, it sometimes gets lost on me how important representation is, and that there still isn't enough. Obviously, I know representation is good, and I've liked RBG because of her views, because women's rights and gay rights are human rights, and they shouldn't need to be debated as much as they are in this country. But what I'm hearing and seeing from women is that RBG, or someone like her, isn't just fighting for rights, she's fighting for them. She's fighting for their rights. She truly was an icon. The reason that all of that has been largely glossed over is because of the monumental consequences that come with her passing, and I think she'd encouraged that because she was in this fight nearly until the day she died. This fight over whether Trump should get to nominate someone, who it'll be, and all that business is going to get ugly, or at least it probably will, so just prepare yourselves for that. The reason for this is because of the whole Merrick Garland situation back in 2016, which feels like forever ago. At that time, the super conservative Justice Scalia died in February 2016, just under 9 months from the election. Mitch McConnell's proudest moment came from that time, when he rounded up all the Republicans and refused to even hold a hearing for Garland, meaning we only had 8 Supreme Court justices for over a year. Mitch used the cover of this unwritten rule that people call the Biden rule. This Biden rule is even more BS than I remember because it was just something that Joe Biden said during a speech when he was a senator in 1992 when George H.W. Bush was running for re-election. There wasn't even a vacancy at the time. It was literally just a speech. The media doesn't like mentioning that part. Oh, by the way, John McCain was arguing that they should keep the seat open if Hillary won. So remember that if you ever wonder why Meghan McCain can be such an idiot sometimes. Obviously, the big difference from that situation in 2016 and this one is that people weren't voting yet in 2016. Early voting started in North Carolina already this year, and just last week in Virginia, so a lot of folks can't even vote based on the Supreme Court if they wanted to. But, of course, Mitch feels no shame, so like a half an hour after her death was announced, he was already dancing on her grave. It's hard to be a worse person than Trump, but I think Mitch McConnell ultimately takes the cake. Lindsey Graham, who said this,
I'm a conservative, want conservative judges on the court. This may make you feel better, but I really don't care. If an opening comes in the last year of President Trump's term and the primary process has started, we'll wait to the next election. I want you to use my words against me.
You're on the record.
Yeah.
All right.
Hold the tape.
and this.
This is the last year of a lame duck president. And if Ted Cruz or Donald Trump get to be president, they've all asked us not to confirm or take up a selection by President Obama. So if a vacancy occurs in their last year of their first term, guess what? You will use their words against them. I want you to use my words against me. If there's a Republican president in 2016 and a vacancy occurs in the last year of the first term, you can say, Lindsey Graham said, let's let the next president, whoever it might be, make that nomination, and you could use my words against me, and you'd be absolutely right.
Has already said he'd love if Trump nominates someone. What do they have on you, Lindsey? What do the Russians have? This was Ted Cruz in 2016, and then Ted Cruz on Saturday.
But doesn't the United States Senate have an obligation to at least go through the process and have an up or down vote?
Not remotely.
Why?
It has been 80 years since a Supreme Court vacancy was nominated and confirmed in an election year. There is a long tradition that you don't do this in an election year. And what this means, Chuck, is we ought to make the 2016 election a referendum on the Supreme Court. I cannot wait to stand on that debate stage.
I think it is critical that the Senate takes up and confirms that successor before Election Day. There's going to be enormous pressure from the media. There's going to be enormous pressure from Democrats to delay filling this vacancy. But this election, this nomination is why Donald Trump was elected.
There is example after example of this, yet it only seems like 3 Republican senators have the courage to stand up, and one of them I'm not even counting. So far, the people who said that Trump shouldn't nominate someone are Mitt Romney, of course, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, and Susan Collins, the troubled senator from Maine. Obviously, Susan is really just trying to pander. She doesn't believe this in her heart. She would love if Trump nominated someone, especially after she voted for Kavanaugh and basically called Christine Blasey Ford a liar. A doctor she called a liar. The thing is, Mitch McConnell would not have let her say that if he didn't already know that he had the votes to confirm someone, so I guess get ready for a 6-3 court. This sucks on multiple reasons, but mostly in terms of abortion rights, as well as possible Obamacare changes. Remember how the court is supposed to hear about a case on Obamacare just after the election? That takes on a whole new meaning at this point, doesn't it? Now, I don't know what the right strategy is to fight this. Do we try to pull out all the stops and fight to the death over it? That seems like a compelling argument, but I'm really not sure how that would happen. We could also accept that it's going to be a 6-3 court and really keep hammering away at the Republicans' hypocrisy in the hopes that voters see that and that it costs them the Senate. When that happens, we should seriously talk about increasing the number of Supreme Court justices to 11 or more. The thing that sucks about that is everybody will make a fuss about how it's never been done before, how FDR tried and failed to do it, etc., etc. Not to mention the fact that it would only get liberals back to a 6-5 court, so we'd still have to rely on a conservative justice swinging to our side once in a while. But to me, it's just clear that liberals can't just accept 6-3 forever, especially when something as crucial as healthcare for millions of Americans is on the line. I'll finally leave this story, for now, on the coincidence that Ginsburg died on the eve of Rosh Hashanah. I've seen several people of Jewish faith note that it's said that those who die on the eve of the Jewish New Year are the ones that God has held back until the last moment because they were needed most, and were the most righteous. So, that's poetic justice. In addition, her last statement, which she gave to her granddaughter, was, quote, "My most fervent wish is that I will not be replaced until a new president is installed," end quote. With that in mind, here are Joe Biden's words on her passing, showing his contrast with Trump once again.
We learned of the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who was not only a giant in the legal profession, but a beloved figure. And my heart goes out to all those who cared for her and care about her. And she practiced the highest American ideals as a justice, equality and justice under the law. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg stood for all of us. As I said, she was a beloved figure. As a young attorney, you all know the story. She persisted, overcoming a lot of obstacles for a woman practicing law in those days, as well as she continued until she She moved herself in a position where she could end up changing the law of the land and leading the effort to provide equality for women in every field. And she led the advance of equal rights for women.
In the intro, I said that Trump made some crazy statements over the weekend, so let's go over some of them right now. They range from the stupid to the dangerous and racist. Let's start with the stupid. Here's number 1.
Hey, you now have a president that doesn't have to use a teleprompter. Isn't that nice?
He literally has 2 teleprompters in front of him when he's saying that. They're in the camera shot, and he always has a teleprompter these days.
Well, so what grade do you give yourself on the virus for the last 6-7 months?
Other than the public relations, which is impossible because it's a fake media, fake. They're fake. I know you just. Well, I think
yeah,
you
I
do.
do.
Agree, but
Yeah.
Other than the fact that I have been unable to.
So what's the grade, sir?
On treating us fairly, I give ourselves an A. But the grade is incomplete, and I'll tell you why. If we come up with the vaccines and therapeutics, then I give myself an A+.
As Bob Woodward would go on to explain, that was from a call on July 19th. 142,000 Americans were dead at that point, and this guy gives himself an A+? In case you missed it on Friday's show, Africa is a continent of 1.3 billion people, and they have 30,000 people dead from this. In no universe should the United States have over 200,000 dead Americans.
But there's a big story. She spent $2 million on bullshit. Okay? And if a Republican did that, they'd be in jail. You know that. It's a different standard, and it's a disgrace. And
Nothing to see here. Just a president saying that an American congresswoman should be prosecuted. He's talking about AOC, if you didn't catch that.
I remember this guy, Welchie. He got hit on the knee with a canister of tear gas, and he went down. He didn't. He was down. My knee. Nobody cared. These guys didn't care. They moved him aside. And they just walked right through. It was the most beautiful thing. No, because after we take all that crap, for weeks and weeks, they would take this crap, and then you finally see men get up there and go right through. Wasn't it really a beautiful sight? It's called Law and Order. Law and Order. Remember they hit the CNN reporter in the knee? He went down, Ali Velci. He said, "This is a friendly protest. It's wonderful to see such a..." Behind him, it was all fire for blood. It looked like Berlin during the war. This is a friendly... What are they doing? How does that help to be like that? How does that help? We're joined tonight by...
He's bragging about a reporter being injured by the police. Not once, but twice. 2 separate days. This really gets under my skin. These reporters, even though they don't always write the correct things, at least from my opinion morally, are the only things between us and a Fox News-controlled world where facts mean nothing.
Their families. They were tough, and they were strong. You have good genes, you know that, right? You have good genes. A lot of it's about the genes, isn't it? Don't you believe? The racehorse theory, you think we're so different? You have good genes in Minnesota. One of the most vital issues in this election is the subject of refugees. You know it. You know it perhaps better than almost anybody. Lots of luck. You having a good time with your refugees? That's good. We want to have Omar. Yeah, he said Omar. That's a beauty. How the hell did she win the election? How did she win?
No jokes about those 2 clips. Those are as dangerous as the clip bragging about police targeting a journalist. Saying refugees are bad, including House Representative Omar, who was born in America, then saying to a group that's 99.5% white that they have good genes? I mean, what is this? In school, they spent a fair amount of time teaching us about a failure of a man who gained power by convincing people who were struggling financially that this group of other people were the problem. They were the reason for your struggles. This man lived in Germany, and I'll let you connect the dots on the rest. Your last hint is the number 6 million. It's happening here, folks. Democracy is fragile, and no true democracy has lasted as long as ours. meaning we're overdue for something. Now, let's get to the real important news. TikTok is saved. As it turns out, Oracle and Walmart teamed up with TikTok's parent company, ByteDance, to create TikTok Global, which will have its headquarters in the US. It'll still be majority owned by ByteDance, but Oracle will host all of TikTok's US user data and will safeguard TikTok's computer systems, according to this NPR article. What's in it for Oracle and Walmart? Well, this will help Oracle boost its cloud computing business, and Walmart will have a new audience of younger people. Trump has said this is okay with him, and why wouldn't he? Oracle's CEO, Larry Ellison, is a huge Trump donor. And if you remember, a whistleblower said that Ellison was the one who told Trump about hydroxychloroquine at a fundraiser that he hosted for Trump in February. So, you can thank Larry for that wonderful piece of advice. Thanks, Larry. Alright, that'll do it for me here today. Like I mentioned, RBG's death took up most of the oxygen in the news sphere here this weekend, so that's why it was the story I focused on. There are some potentially interesting stories in the works now, so maybe I'll have more info on those tomorrow. But one of them is definitely Tropical Storm Beta, and if you are in the path of that, I'm thinking of you. Hurricanes look nasty, man. Seeing the lines at the gas station? Unbelievable. Also, I have to ask, what did you think of the clip show on Friday? Was it useful? Should it become a Friday standard? Or should I stick to the regular format? You can use the Google Form survey link in the episode's description to let me know. But yeah, I'm just curious about that. I thought it went quite well. I think it's good to hear all of those clips and just kind of review them. Also, as of midnight tonight / early this morning, my second review of the Avengers game became available. So if you haven't already, today would be a great day to listen to that. Oh, and by the way, if you become a contributor on Patreon, Steady, PayPal, you get early access to those reviews. So, just one extra little incentive there. Otherwise, stay safe, make your plan to vote, fill out your census, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow.